I call the Honourable Member Catherine Delahunty. Tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koutou te whare. I found it interesting to hear the previous speaker say that the first duty of the state is to provide security, and they've just sold our assets and made us all feel a lot more insecure. But I want to talk about what I think the duty of the state is with regard to education in terms of this appropriations debate. I'll start with targets, because we've heard a lot of rhetoric about targets this morning. Target 1 was sell assets. Target 2 was to sell them to pay for tax cuts for the top 10% of people in the country. And one of the other targets is to privatise the education system, and the other target is to bash beneficiaries, all of which are well on track, but not working for the people in the streets who I spent 5 hours yesterday on the streets of the Kapiti Coast, listening to citizens talking about their experience of the current government, what they believe about asset sales, and also what they think about education. So it is very educational to spend time on the streets listening to what people have got to say. But I want to talk first about the appropriations, because the figures don't tell the real story. The figures are fairly opaque, and you can do what you like with them. Every government tends to spend more on education simply because the population grows and we have more children to educate. It's got very little to do with a real investment in it. And that's why I'd say one of the targets is a privatisation agenda for the education system. We'll start with early childhood, which is one where there's a great claim that we've spent more money. And at a recent forum in Waikato, David Bennett, myself and Sue Moroney met with early childhood teachers and early childhood students who are doing their practicums in early childhood centres. And in fact, both Sue Moroney and I did not really need to say anything, because those people told the government very clearly that they were being undercut by government policy on early childhood. Because no longer can they go through an education process and guarantee they'll get a job in an early childhood centre, because of the target has gone from 100% to 80%. And so centres who are all feeling the pinch due to the freeze on their funding are not able to actually hire people with qualifications. So it's a perverse educational incentive. When the less qualified you are, the more likely you are to get a job in your chosen passion, which is early childhood. And with all the rhetoric around the importance of children, the first concept we need to sort out is universalism, and then targeting, because if we don't provide a universal access to early childhood, we will never meet the need, because we can never know where all those children are, and it's not possible to do an effective target without universalism. So the early childhood experience is very bitter, and anyone who was at that forum would have heard exactly what those people are saying, that they were very disappointed that they were having to put up fees. They were having to put up fees so that people couldn't access early childhood. Let's move on to primary schools, because I've only got 5 minutes to talk about this subject. Again, if you look at the appropriations, the professional development budget has been narrowed into one form of professional development, and that is to ensure that schools are rolling out the government's agenda, and it's not an agenda that they chose. And that agenda is the agenda to roll out national standards. Now, national standards, according to the teachers and parents that I talk to, are not even properly moderated, which means you do not have them as a standard across the country, nor can they be said to be national. And so apparently a whole lot more money is about to be spent on expensive software, a program where you can punch in some numbers, and then those numbers will print out a result, and that will tell you what league table you're going to end up in your school. That is not proper moderation, and it's not going to make sure that we have any kind of assessment that works. So I'd just like to point out that the target to increase national standards is actually a target to cut arts advisors, science advisors, and the whole child education. Mr Speaker, I was outside Parliament the other day and I met 2 American teachers who are over here looking at our system, saying the reason we're here is because you have some fantastic principles that run your education system. Of course it can be better, but one of the things they said was, we have lost it in the United States with education. We are assessing, and we are no longer teaching. We are not teaching the whole child. This is about whole child learning. We have seen in your schools that your teachers are committed to whole child. They said to me, if you are a politician, don't let this happen. And therefore, Mr Speaker, in terms of the appropriations debate, it's really important that the money gets spent on broad professional development and on supporting the curriculum. Otherwise, the targets are a complete waste of time. Thank you.
I call the Honourable Member Paul Goldsmith.